Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. We've got another video today where we're rating or hating certain units from the Necrons Codex. We've done a few of these now and it's pretty much just my take, how I play these certain units, and at the end of the video I give you a rate it or hate it. There's no in-betweens, there's no rating system anymore apart from rate or hate. So yeah, what shall we plug today? We're normally just doing subscribers and stuff, but yeah, if you want to get involved in the Discord, the link will be down in the description below. Channels within Discord where you can put your lists and get feedback. There's painting channels, and every channel just has something unique about it. I mean, we've got, what else we've got in there? We've got a channel for Crusade if you play Crusade, rules, questions, and so on. So yeah, get involved if you haven't already. If you are new to Discord, just check it out. Right, so let's get into today's video. We have got the Necron Monolith, and that is going to be the focus of this rate or hate video. So let's get into the datasheet. So this datasheet, we've got the Necron Monolith. It's 160mm base. It's quite a large chunky model, this one, and yeah, I think that in itself is a bit of a problem for the model, but we'll go over that in a bit. Let's first get rid of these statistics. So we've got a movement of 8 inches, which is nice. Toughness 13. It did drop a bit of toughness from the index. It was toughness 14. 13 is still pretty good, so I'm not going to complain too heavily. A 2+ armor save on top of that. There is no invulnerable save, which people seem to kind of moan about, but I personally don't see it as a problem. When you've got a 2+ armor save, it's only the real big boy weapons like the -4 AP kind of weapons that, you know, that interacts with. Even a -3 AP weapon only puts it on a 5+ armor save, and if you had a 5+ armor save, you'd be happy. So it's, to me, it's fine. When you've got a 2+, it really is pretty tough. 22 wounds on top of that 2+ armor save, leadership 7+, and the OC is 8, so a nice bit of OC there. If you can get this thing on an objective, that's pretty good. OC 8. Let's move down into the keywords, then I'll move on to the points cost, because again I've done it in the wrong order because the data card is all flipped and reversed. Right, keywords. It's a vehicle. Duh, of course it's a vehicle. It's Titanic, it can fly, and it's got the towering keyword, and of course it's Monolith. Moving over to the point side of things, it's a 350 point model. Quite a lot of points in terms of your points cost there. And we'll work out by the end of this video whether 350 points is worth it or not. Let's move back up into the weaponry side of things, starting with the ranged weapon. So we're equipped to 4 Gorse Flux Arcs, Particle Whip, and a Portal of Exile. Now you can swap out the 4 Gorse Flux Arcs for 4 Death Rays, which is what most people do. We've got quite a lot of anti-infantry weapons. We don't really need more, so we'll go through it first, but then, yeah, I'll expect you all to change it out, really. So those Gorse Flux Arcs, that's the middle line in the ranged weapons there. We're going to go through that first. Lethal hits, rapid fire 3, 24-inch range, 3 shots per arc. You've got 4 of these arcs, that's going to be 12 shots. Now, if you're within rapid fire range, that's going to be 24 shots. So if you're within 12-inch range, 24 shots there. Hitting on 3s, strength 6, -1 AP, 1 damage. You've got lethal hits with those shots. Like I said, we don't necessarily need more of this kind of stuff. We've got a lot of strength 6 with the Canoptic Spiders, with Particle Beamers. We've got them with the Locust Heavy Destroyers, with Exterminators. I don't feel like you need to pay 350 points more to get more of this stuff. I mean, even if you're going a bit smaller, you've got the Gorse Blasters, the Gorse Reapers, the Gorse Flayers even. I know they're only strength 5, strength 4 kind of thing, but we've got a lot of anti-infantry stuff. I don't think we need more. So yeah, I would put that aside and I would swap them out with the 4 Death Rays. 4 Death Rays, they've got sustained hits D3, 24-inch range, 1 shot per Death Ray with 4 Death Rays, so 4 shots. I always tend to miss one of my shots, but I always seem to roll a 6, so I get D3 back, and I always end up getting like 2 back, so I end up with 5 hits from 4 shots normally, which is actually pretty good. But yeah, you are hitting on 3s, your strength 12, -4 AP, D6 +1 damage. So strength 12 is pretty powerful. Of course, it doesn't go up to the, you know, the 13s and the 14s in terms of toughness, but strength 12 usually means you can at least go at the big targets, because a lot of them are around that category in terms of their toughness. Toughness 10, toughness 11, even toughness 12. It's quite rare to see toughness 13 and 14 unless you're playing the big heavy stuff. -4 AP is perfect. That's all you really need for anything that hasn't got the invulnerable save. It pretty much removes their armor save. Even if they've got a 2+, I mean, if they've got a 2+, they've probably got an invulnerable save at that point. and d6 plus 1 damage per shot is nice. Now that's not the only weapon that this thing has got. You've got the Particle Whip, which is also a weapon that I quite like. Blast and Devastating Wounds are the keywords attached to this weapon. Again, it's 24-inch range like the rest of them, and you get 3d6 shots. Now 3d6 shots is an average of 10 or 11, depends on that, or 10.5 if you want to be precise, but you've also got blast on the actual weapon, so therefore if you're firing at 10 Space Marines perhaps, you're going to get 2 extra shots there with the Particle Whip, so that could all of a sudden become 13 shots. You're hitting on 3s and you are strength 8, so you will be wounding on 2s against those said Space Marines. Toughness 4 is probably the ideal candidate, especially the ones that have got 2 wounds. You've got Devastating Wounds on top of that, so you can be going straight through the armor save and maybe invuln save if they've got any. Minus 1 AP could be better. Again, Space Marines, it only puts them on a 4+ armor, and 2 damage a pop is all you really need. But you've got quite a lot of shots there, a good volume of shots from that Particle Whip. Now the melee side of things, you've got the Portal of Exile. This is also pretty good, especially for a vehicle. Vehicles don't tend to be that good in engagement range, especially for Necrons anyway. I mean, look at the Triarch Stalker for instance. But the Monolith is pretty good. You've got 6 attacks, you're hitting on 2s. Now we used to auto hit, but hitting on 2s is still pretty good. So that's an average of 5 hits from your 6 attacks. Again, you are strength 8, so perfect against toughness 4 kind of models. Minus 2 AP this time, and the damage is 3. So Terminators without the Storm Shields, you're removing them from play every time one of these goes through. I mean, if they've got the Storm Shields, then they're not the best candidate because you've got to get 2 to go through just to kill a Terminator there. But anything that is damage 3 is ideal really, because you're removing models there. But even 2 wound models I think is an okay candidate, because you're still removing models. Yes, the damage doesn't obviously spill, but you're still doing the work, so I think that's fine. So yeah, it can protect itself in engagement range if needed to. Only with 6 attacks though, so against a horde kind of unit, that could be problematic for its movement capabilities, but at least we can fire out of engagement range in this edition. Over to the ability side of things, we've got Deadly Demise D6, so it's quite a large explosion if it does go bang, and it's got Deep Strike, so that's going to interact with a few things. First of all, just getting into the battle, getting onto an objective with OC8 perhaps, getting in back lines maybe. There's all sorts of things that could be secondary card related, and even primaries too. And it's also going to interact with the detachments such as the Hypercrypt Legion, which we'll talk about that in a bit. Reanimation Protocols is quite a key ability for this kind of model because it's got 22 wounds, 2+ armor with 13 on the toughness, so it's quite difficult to get a lot of weapons to go through unless you're playing against certain factions that can do that job. So if they do take a few shots and get a few wounds through, we are reanimating D3 each time. That's nice. The unique ability here is the Eternity Gate. So in the reinforcement step of your movement phase, you can select one Necron's infantry unit that's either in reserves or on the battlefield. And what you pretty much do is you set them up within 6 inches, wholly within 6 inches of your monolith, and not within engagement range of any enemy models. That unit cannot then declare a charge this turn. Now there is a way of bypassing that charge restriction. Again, we'll talk about that in a bit. So what this is meant for is getting in your inventory, basically getting in your Necron warriors. Maybe you've got a brick of 20 of them, maybe it's the Triarch Praetorians, maybe it's the Lich Guard that are quite slow on the battlefield with only 5 inches of movement. So there's a number of different infantry kind of units that can interact with this, and in fact there is another one that I only recently learnt about. It was from a comment within the 2000 point list we did recently, and if you're putting a Technomancer with the Canoptic Wraiths, they all share keywords, so therefore those Canoptic Wraiths have the infantry keyword, which I find quite bizarre. So even the Wraiths could use the Eternity Gate if you wanted to. Although those Wraiths are quite fast, they are moving 10 inches, and they want to be moving over models to be doing mortal wounds and stuff. But options are options. So yeah, there's lots of different things you can do with the Eternity Gate, and again, we'll talk about that in a bit. So yeah, in fact, we'll move into my tactics now. So my tactics, what am I doing with the Monolith? So first of all, key detachment, the Hypercrypt Legion. One of my favourite detachments, I believe, at this moment in time. The one when you're hyperphasing in and out each battle round. I love that kind of stuff. Now, with the Monolith in particular, you've got the option here. You can either deep strike it in, turn 2, or maybe you just move it up the battlefield because of, it depends on space, I suppose. If you're going up against a horde, if you've got a bazillion Orc boys, and they've completely flooded the no man's land and the back ends of the battlefield, you're going to struggle deep striking units in, especially a monolith of a, what's the base size again? It was 160 mil. You're going to really struggle to get that in. So depends on who you're going up against. What I like to do is I like to tell my opponent quite early about the Cosmic Precision Stratagem, which is the stratagem that allows you to deep strike 3 inches away from enemy models. This tends to make them really castle up. They're already kind of castling up because you've got a monolith in reserves anyway, so they're already, screening off large areas so that your monolith can't get in. If you tell them about the 3-inch one, the 3-inch Cosmic Precision Stratagem, they start to really tighten up their ranks. What this tends to do against a lot of factions and a lot of players is it tends to open up the no man's land a bit more, especially early doors, early game. And what this obviously interacts with is your primaries and your secondaries, getting onto those objectives nice and early to start scoring cleansed, scoring area denial, whatever card you've got coming up, and also your primaries. If you start scoring them early, most missions don't let you score turn 1, but if you're on there ready and you've got a lot of OC and you're now forcing your opponent to target certain things, which is not ideal for your opponent, but they're thinking about points or denying us points. So I like that early game plan to get your opponent to tighten up and leave the open areas in the no man's land. So once you've seen that there's a large area in the no man's land, what I tend to do is that's where I deep strike the monolith. I don't put it in the back end, I don't put it in my opponent's deployment zone, I just put it around the center, to the left, to the right, doesn't really matter, as long as there's some space. If you need to use Cosmic Precision, use it, but usually you find that there's plenty of space in the no man's land. Now this is now going to be your portal. You're going to be using this for your infantry, as we mentioned, to pop in, scoop destroyers, whether it's your Lich Guard, your Wraiths now with the Technomancers. If you want to move your warriors, your Immortals, because they've got that slow movement of 5 inches, you can do that as well. Now there is a way of actually using the Eternity Gate in a different manner. You're using it in the exact same way, but you're going to be doing it in your opponent's turn. There's a stratagem for 2 command points called Hyperphase Recall. So as soon as you lose a model in an infantry unit, you take that entire unit off the battlefield and put them wholly within 6 inches of your monolith, so that they can go from one end of the battlefield to the other in your opponent's turn. You can use that very tactically. It could be for scoring again, it could be secondaries, it could be denying your opponent certain things with their secondaries, but mainly it's getting your unit out of dodge. If your opponent is lining up a charge, they're firing at your Lich Guard, they're waiting for a charge in their charge phase, but they've killed one at range and you just take them away. Now they've got no charge targets, so they're kind of stuck and they were relying on a charge to get onto an objective perhaps. You've kind of messed them up there. So that's one way of using the stratagems from the Hypercrypt Legion. Now there's no 9-inch restriction also when you're using the Eternity Gate, it's just a wholly within 6 inch kind of thing. So that could be good for charges. Now we did mention there is a restriction to charges, but there is a stratagem. This one is called Dimensional Corridor. It is also 2 CP, so we're getting a bit hefty on the CP now, which is why I like to take Imatech in the Hypercrypt Legion, because CP does get quite heavy. But if you are using the Dimensional Corridor, you can now charge from the Eternity Gate. So usually you've got quite an easy charge, otherwise there's no real point to doing it. Again, a lot of our infantry are quite slow, Lich Guard in particular, 5-inch movement. If you want to get them into a fight or get them onto an objective within a fight, that's a way of doing it. Now that monolith is going to be targeted from turn 1, because your opponent is going to know everything kind of centers around a monolith, or in their mind, in a non-Necron player's mind, everything centers around the monolith. I personally don't think it does. I kind of put it into my list sort of just to test it out, and it did good, but I didn't center everything around it. It was just a large weapons unit, if you know what I mean, that was available to teleport things if I needed it to. Didn't necessarily need it to at all times, but your opponent is going to think that's the main target. We've got to deal with it. Forget the Nightbringer, forget the Void Dragon, we've got to get rid of the monolith. That's what they're going to be doing. So if you do find an opponent that does that, you've got the Quantum Deflection stratagem for a 4+ invulnerable save to your monolith, so you'll be using that. And there's also the Entropic Damping stratagem to make all weapons that target your monolith hazardous. Now when I first looked at this, I was thinking there's not much to that, I don't really care too much about it. But it sort of got me thinking. There was a few comments that said, no, you're underestimating that stratagem, and I looked into it a bit more, and I think, you know what, in some situations, that person was right. I can't remember who made that comment, by the way, but that person was right. If you're coming up against a unit of melter unit kind of thing, depends on the faction you're playing, of course, but something that can do a bit of work in volume, but it's got the high damage, not necessarily a good wound roll, but once they do get through, the damage is quite high. If you put hazardous on their weapons and there's a unit of say 10 of them, then all of a sudden you can expect a couple of ones, maybe 1 or 2 ones in that unit, which means they're going to go down. They're going to lose a few models just for actually trying to target us. If they're a character, monster or vehicle, they're going to take 3 mortal wounds if they roll that 1. So that can help, it can help, but I think it's not the best stratagem that we've got here, but the option is there. Now, general use for the Monolith, first of all, it's a big anti-tank, anti-monster kind of thing. You got the 4 strength 12 shots, then it's also capable of anti-light vehicle and anti-infantry because of the 3d6 of, you know, got strength 8 shots now. So it's got a lot of weapons, and in melee as well, it's not a pushover. Now, against certain factions, it can get dropped quite easily. If you're going up against a really hard shooty faction or knights or something, yeah, it can go down quite quick, but it means your opponent's putting their entire list into it because of the toughness 13, 22 wounds, 2+ armor save. They're putting everything into it, which means they're not going to be putting stuff into the Nightbringers, the Void Dragons, the Transcendent Catans, and so on. So if you've got a list that's been coupled with some Catan, they're going to have to make decisions because they can't have everything in one. Those Catan are going to take most of your opponent's list to deal with in a single turn, if not the entire army, and they still might not deal with it. So they're going to have to pick one thing or another. Now, in terms of other detachments, I mean, the Annihilation Legion, maybe. I know it's a subpar detachment, not really useful at the moment. A few people play it for friendly and for fun, but maybe you want to get your Scorpic Lord with your Scorpic Destroyers into engagement range. Just gives them a better mode of transport by using the Eternity Gate, perhaps. The Canoptic Core, I don't think you need it. It's quite a fairly fast detachment. The Canoptic units have got the speed and the movement. There may be some synergy with the Obeisance Phalanx detachment. I've not used the Monolith in that detachment yet. But if you can get some Lich Guard with an Overlord popping out, they've got the +1 to wound detachment rule. Maybe there's something in there. Or maybe even Immortals popping out and, you know, re-rolling all the wound rolls. +1 to the wound roll. You've now got the range because the Monolith got you in. I don't know. I've not tried it out yet, but there may be something there. So let's get on to this part of the video where I rate it or I hate it. For me, before trying this thing out in this codex, I would have definitely gone towards the hate, because I thought, why would we pay 350 points, especially in the Hive Crit Legion? The Hive Crit Legion's detachment rule is good enough. We don't need a Monolith. It's good enough on its own. I then tried the Monolith out, and I thought it did really well. I mean, it destroyed a lot of stuff. I was playing against, what did I play against in the last game? I think it was just demons. It normally is demons, to be fair, so a lot of my experience goes down that direction. But it dealt with a lot of stuff, took a lot of damage, took a lot of hits, and it did fairly well overall. So I've kept it in my main list. So I've got to say, at this moment in time, I'm not sure. I was going to rate it, but then I was going to hate it. I'm not sure, because other detachments, it kind of doesn't need to be there. I'm going to have to change my mind on the fly here. I think I'm going to have to go with hate. I'm going to have to go with hate. It only works in the one detachment, and even that detachment, you don't necessarily need it. I've just had a few good games with it. So for now, I'm going to go with I hate it.